I'm just Bbegurlinn.
Welcome to the Bbegurlinn channel. Ooh. She back and she better. And I just want to pray beforehand. Yeah, hi. I just want to pray beforehand that Lord blesses this conversation because we're talking about my journey with God. So the first thing I want us to talk about is basically at the beginning. So throughout my childhood, all the churches I was going to and the people that we were around, all I heard was like God's condemnation. Like he was literally with a, like standing there with a stick ready to like slap you down if you make a mistake. It literally was just, it was really just pushed that God is like to be feared, but I never actually ever heard about the love of God. And because of that, I didn't understand the concept of him loving me. And I didn't realize that really until I was like 24. So my whole Christian journey, I had no idea. And if I knew that, I definitely wouldn't have been in some of the situations that I've been in, and I would have had so much self-worth and value if I had, but that's a whole nother story. Let me not go so far. So right now, the being saved. So I was saved my whole life. I pretty much gave my life to God probably about 6, and then I started really growing my relationship with God about probably maybe 7 or 8 years old. That's when I'd be praying and I would hear from God, and like I was getting instruction and I was really close with him, but there was always like a kind of divide where there was a part of our relationship that just couldn't evolve because I didn't know how much he loved me and I didn't know how much he valued me. And as well, it's just to have like the father figure in God, it's like that was a lot for me to grasp as well. So there was a lot that I needed to understand with that and even accept in order to have that intimate relationship with God. And that was a huge thing to learn, because even though I was saved, I did feel like, you know, there's a part of the relationship that I haven't explored yet. There was the intimacy that wasn't 100% there yet. Because like, for example, like even talking to God about my day or things that are hard for me, I never did that. I never really had conversations where I talked about like, oh, this is going wrong for me, I'm having a hard time with this. I just, because I was like the way I was taught, it was like I was taught to kind of suppress my emotions. So I suppressed my emotions with everything and everyone. So even with God, I wasn't having that intimate relationship where it's like God is like your dad. He my dad, honey, he my daddy. So it's just like now I go to God about everything. But back then, I didn't go to anyone about any of my problems. I would just suffer in silence, and that extended to my relationship with God, which really, like, if I had given it to God, I just think about it now, I would have been such a happy person. I would have just had, you know, less on my shoulder, less of the burden. I would just be living my best life. I'm just like, girl, if only. But we thank God for progress. Now, falling apart, this is when it just went crazy. So I was at university. When I first went to university, I basically had ill health. I was going through POTS, and because of that I would literally black out and pass out for 8 to 12 hours at a time. It got to the point in first year I was only actually conscious for about 2 to 3 hours a day after about a month or two at university. So I missed out on a lot, I wasn't around a lot, and during that time I went through a lot. I'll probably like explain it in story time later, but like I lost all my friends, I didn't have anyone, and I grew really close to God. I was reading my Bible so much, I was praying, I was just so close to God, and I didn't feel as alone. But there was still a part of me where I was just like, oh, I need people. Who am I without friends? Who am I without support? Because like when I first went to the university, I actually chose that university because I was very close to the church, and I also like I was even closer to people in the church and the pastors, and I went there, like I went to their meetings like 2 or 3 times a week, and I just loved having that spiritual home. Because when we were younger, we didn't really have one spiritual home in a church, and like in a church we went to like numerous different churches, and I really desperately wanted that. And I thought my university journey would just get so much better and just be smoother if I had that like spiritual I don't know, that spiritual like support as well, like people that are praying for me, people that I can go to and ask them to pray for me. It didn't work out that way. I will explain that in another story time, that's a whole nother video. But at the time I was just like leaning on God completely. But second year, this is when I moved with housemates, and they were my friends at the time, and this is when things went really downhill for me. Basically I went through I'll talk about it another time, but it was just a really, really toxic situation. I was going through a lot. I had 2 cardiac ablations, which is basically like a form of heart surgery to kind of help and try and correct. It's not going to cure it, but it can basically alleviate some of the symptoms caused by POTS. I had 2 of those, and during that time of recovery I got treated the worst. It was like the worst experience of my life. It was so toxic. I didn't have anyone to take care of me. I didn't have any family taking care of me when I was recovering from surgery, and that was the darkest time of my life. And that's when I just kind of went off the rails slightly. I was lost. I was like resentful. I was like angry that I was doing this alone. I was angry about how toxic the situation with my housemates, because they made it even worse for me. Like literally they would even eat all my food while I was recovering from surgery, so I'd have nothing to eat while I was recovering. I literally had to go on my electric scooter and literally push my scooter on the road while I was still recovering from surgeries 2 days after surgery. And mind you, they go through like the groin, so as they go through the groin, it's like your legs are still in pain. You're not actually supposed to move that much, but I had no option. I had to get food, so I was literally, oh baby girl, you really talk about these things that you just think, you see God is faithful, you're carrying me through. But during that time I was at the lowest. I was like, I can't do this anymore, and I don't want to do this anymore. Like I was literally at the lowest, and I was literally at a point like, God, I cannot do this. And I cried out to God, and I heard his voice so loudly and so strong to me, and he said the most comforting thing to me when I was literally at the point where I didn't want to do it anymore. And God really rescued me. And from that point I literally started like reading my Bible more regularly. Because the thing is, what was hard, because I had POTS, I suffered with blurred vision a lot, and because of that I just gave up on the prospect of reading. I just completely gave up. I was just like I can't do it, so what, like why am I trying, why am I, because I would get frustrated. I'm trying to read the Bible, I'm trying to read things, and I can't like even see properly, and I'll just get angry at myself. I'll just be like, oh, get so frustrated that it took away from the task entirely. But anyways, so I actually read the Bible more. And also as well, another thing for people with chronic illness, that like they kind of struggle with reading the Bible due to any of like the ailments that you may have, trust me, YouVersion, listen to the Bible, listen to it in audio. That can make such a difference. And when you're not physically able to read it, just listening it to it, oh, it feeds the soul, honey. Sometimes I'll just have it on for hours. I just love it. I literally even go to sleep to it sometimes. But anyways, yeah. So then during that time, this was about 2018, 2017 to 2018, I moved into another house. That situation was also toxic. That's why I'll never live with housemates again. Hey, never in my life. I like definitely forgive the people involved, but moving forward I could never ever have housemates. I haven't actually had housemates since 2018, 19, never again. And I kind of like, it got to the point that I just got in a very dark hole again, and I literally just didn't really leave the bed. I was just like completely isolated, and I just really was just having a really hard time. But I remember as things started to get better, I moved out in 2019. I wasn't really going to church at this point because like my health was still up and down, and at the point, because of my experience with like the church I told you about in university, I wasn't really feeling that, you know, motivated to go back to church, because the situation was so like terrible and traumatic that happened after it again. So anyways, so during that time I didn't really go to church. I was rarely going out. I was only going out then and there. I actually started a job. Things were getting a bit better. My health was improving slightly. I started a job, and then that situation I had to leave because it just wasn't a good environment. It was starting to affect my health. The way they advertised the job was not how it actually was. They told me it was administration, ended up being administration and lifting 25 kg plus boxes, and they wanted me to also lift more. And they knew about my health issues, and I just said, you know what, I can't do this anymore, especially with the environment also not being very good as well. I was just like, girl, I can't do it. And then I remember this was about, so I left in 2020 January, and so much went wrong in my life, so much. First of all, I was like really sad and depressed about the fact that I had to leave the workplace, because that was a workplace that I wanted to stay for a while. It was the stability of having a job. I was so excited about it because it was the first time that I was able to have a job since about 2016. So I was super excited. I was so proud of myself, and then that being taken away was like the worst thing that could have happened. I just oh my gosh, I just lost it for a second. And then during this time I'll explain how it relates to the workplace, but there was a lot of drama that was happening in my life. I had a lot of people in my life that shouldn't be there. They just caused havoc. I remember it got to the point I just couldn't distance myself, but I still hadn't perfected like my friendship groups, and that kind of trickled into 2021. And I remember in 2021 I was just like really sad. I was like beside myself. I just felt this sadness, and I tried to fill it with going out constantly. Like it got to the point I was going out Monday to Sunday constantly. I never really was in the house. I was only in the house to sleep. So it was just constantly trying to provide myself with a distraction. I was trying to just distract myself from the pain that I was feeling inside about all the stuff I had gone through. It was just really tormenting me. I was just getting nightmares. I wasn't doing well. I was not doing well. But I thought, let me just go outside, have a distraction, you know, it'll make me feel like I'm at least living and like, you know, participating in life at least. And then I remember I just literally had a breaking point. I said, God, like, I can't do this anymore. Because I was doing university at this point. Obviously because of my health, I did like my uni degree like much longer than I should have, because I had to repeat a few times because of the surgeries and all of that. But yeah, back to the story now. I literally had a point where I said to God, like, I am so unhappy. I'm so unhappy. This is not what life has to offer. Life is literally so empty without you. It's so empty. And my thing, and it was hard, because the reason why also I feel like I didn't get as close to God is because I knew that I would have to like talk about the things that I'm going through. And I was like, no, I don't want to go talk about the things I'm going through. I need to just pick up my socks and fire through it, because if I confront it, I will fall apart. And the thing about God, guys, when you take your worries, your burdens, your pain to God, you don't feel heavier, you feel lighter. And that's what I didn't understand at the point, because I never tried it. I never tried it in my life. So I'm thinking I'm going to bring it to God's door, and I'm literally just going to fall apart. The nightmares are going to get worse. I'm just going to be thinking about the memories more. The flashbacks are going to come. It's just going to be disaster, and it's going to make my life worse. So I didn't want to do it. But I remember I just started having a conversation with God. I started talking about what I was going through. I started talking about the emotional turmoil, the flashbacks, the nightmares, everything. When I tell you now, from like 2021, this was probably about late 2021 to like early 2022, I got so close to God. I got so close to God. It was just like the most beautiful experience of my life. I would just be praying constantly. I'd be praying throughout the day. I'd be having such a close relationship with God. I was getting so many revelations. I was listening to the Bible. I literally felt so close to God. And it's really true about the scripture where it says like God is close to the brokenhearted, because God was so close to me in that time. I was so broken, and yet still God was there for me. And I praise God so much, because if he had not picked me up, there was nobody to pick me up. I had no one. I lived alone. I didn't have any pets. I didn't have any family living with me. I didn't really have any friends visiting me. I was completely isolated, and God met me where I was, and he didn't let me go. And I genuinely thank God so much for doing that, because there was nobody else. And it's just like, what I realized is like, without God, we're all self-medicating, whether it's alcohol, whether it's like sex, whether it's drugs, whether it's all sorts of things that people do, or partying or clubbing. We're all self-medicating without God. We're all trying to fill that void. And the thing about when you use the world to try and fill that void, it's like a cup that you just need to keep filling. It's never full. But when you go to God and you get fulfillment from Christ, your cup is always full. There's never feeling like, oh, I'm still thirsty. Because like, if you're using the world to satisfy your urges and your desires and get validation, I mean, you drink alcohol, what happens? You get hangover, and then you just feel like you need to drink again, and you do it again and again and again. Or you take drugs and you're constantly chasing that high again and again and again until it gets worse. God is literally the only healthy addiction. How about it? God is literally the only healthy addiction you will ever have. Having God is never too much. Having things of the world, it always gets too much, and it always goes downhill and gets worse. So I'm genuinely so glad, because I feel like I needed that silent time and that alone time with God to perfect such a close relationship with him, that when I became more successful and when my time became more fragmented, and I didn't have the same time as I did to just completely be alone with him like all day and literally do nothing but talk to God, Now it's like, now I'm doing different things and I'm like doing consecration and other stuff. It's like I'm still implementing that time with God, that alone time with God, and it's the most beautiful time of my life. I even look back on that period. Someone said to me at the time, like, you're going to look back and you're going to wish that you had the time that you had with God again. And I'm just like thinking about it now, like I do enjoy work, and it's like I am a bit of a workaholic at times, but I do think about it and I'm just like, oh, I miss the times when it's like I could just spend time with God endlessly, and I didn't have like itineraries and to-do lists and like tasks that I had to be have to be done before I sleep and stuff. There is a bit that moment where I'm just like, oh, that alone time was beautiful. That's why I guess we got something to look forward to when we go to heaven, because we literally have nothing to do but talk to God. Like, there's obviously other stuff to do in heaven, most likely, but I can literally spend all my time with God. That's like the best thing ever. I feel like I'm going to be such a beggar to God. I feel like I'm just going to be giving hugs all the time. It's like I'm going to be like the kid on his leg, literally just hug me, like don't leave me. Like it's going to be too much. But, and it's crazy because you know what I've noticed on my Christian journey with Christ? It's like a lot of people, I've heard a lot of people leaving the faith, and I definitely do have a lot of compassion for them, and I do feel like they do get condemned a lot and judged a lot, like, oh, you don't love God, or maybe you didn't do things properly. But the thing about walking with Christ, there is a lot of things that do come. There is a lot of like, there's sometimes demonic attack, demonic oppression, sometimes a lot of bad things happen in your life, especially around the time you get close to God, and you start kind of starting that relationship with him. And then over the journey, sometimes some things happen that you're just left field, like that just don't always happen to normal people, and you're just like, where's this come from? But what I've noticed is like with God, it's like the burden is lighter when you're with him. So it's like, I don't know if you've seen the Chosen reference where it's just like Peter is talking about what he went through with his wife and how she had a miscarriage. It was a terrible situation, and I remember John said to him, like, this could have happened with or without Christ, but now you've got someone to go to. And that's literally what it is on the Christian journey. There is stuff that are going to happen either way. Recession could happen either way. You know, a loss in your family, someone unfortunately, you know, leaving this earth, can happen either way. But now you have somebody to go to. Because when I talk to God, I feel so much lighter. Even when I'm frustrated and annoyed with somebody, I talk to God and I say, Lord, please take this away, and Lord, please help me, because I don't want to address your creation in a way that's not becoming of a child of God. That's not what I want to do. And God, literally, I get this peace where I'm just like, hey, I can conquer. And I'm able to actually relate to people in situations like that, not from a place of anger, but from a place of love and a place of trying to understand them and having them also understand me. And it's just like, during this journey, I've just learned so much about God, because as I started talking to him and I was talking to him about the pain that I've gone through and like some traumatic experiences, I just really, oh goodness, I just felt the love of God. I felt the love of God. I didn't, like, he would obviously like verbalize it as well, but like I would physically feel it, and it was the first time that I felt that unconditional love ever in my life. I've never felt unconditional love before, and I've never felt that love where you just know that they will never ever leave you nor forsake you. They will never, even if you're doing the wrong thing, even if you're making mistakes, he's still going to look at you and love you. He's still going to look at you with loving eyes. He may not like what you're doing, but he's still going to love you. And that's what I just love about God. And I journey like this ongoing journey with God. There's a lot that I have to learn. There's a lot of things that God had to work on me with, especially like, for example, like saying everything that's on my mind. I'm very upfront and blunt. That's just naturally my default setting. God had to work with me on that to make sure that I'm not like, you know, being abrasive or offending people, and always trying to talk to people in a gentle, quiet spirit. That's something God has helped me with. Showing love, instead of looking at a situation and being like, oh, what's wrong with you? Like, why are you behaving like this? Literally going into it with trying to understand where they're coming from. Trying to look at them with love, trying to understand, are they behaving this way? Like, for example, I'll give you an example, like when you look at somebody or they say something to you, like for example, oh, like I get this a lot, like, oh, why do you love your dog so much? Why do you show them so much love? And I had to reframe my perspective, because when I heard that, I was just like, well, what's wrong with you? Why would you not love your dog? Like, why would you not love your child or love your dog? Or why would you not be able to express the love so openly? But I had to change my perspective. I literally had to start looking at the way that God sees it. And I literally started seeing it that, no, maybe that person has never been shown real love before, and that's why they can't extend it to others. I said, oh, I said, not that God-given wisdom. I said, what? And that really changed my perspective, because I was no longer looking at people just like, oh, you know, like, why are you behaving like this? Like, can you like do better? Like, what are you doing? I started seeing it from a completely different perspective, of seeing it through the lens of Christ. And that's how you accurately and properly love people. But I hope you enjoyed my journey with God, and subscribe, follow, and you're definitely going to see more. And like as well, and comment. I'd love to hear some of your opinions and some of your experiences with your journey with Christ. But that's me, Bbegurlinn.
Bye, baby.